Hey y'all, I haven't sat down and talked to you guys in like forever. I have just been so busy with my starting my new business, school starting back up, and of course a new ministry endeavor that my friend and I are working on. So we haven't sat down and chit chatted in a while. And I want to talk to you guys today because I just got done with a radio interview for a radio station in Boston. And it's really cool. I'm really excited for you guys to hear it and see it, but that's not the point of this video. I was on there and I was kind of talking about my God story and all the beautiful things that God has done in my life. And the interviewer brought up a question or kind of a statement saying, it sounds like with your story, a lot of the like fire or the negative that happened after you came to Christ. And that's a really like big thing to highlight because that isn't what everyone expects to experience. So I kind of wanted to talk about that today. When I first started really wanting to dive into ministry or dive into Jesus really and get to know him better, I did not anticipate going through really negative valleys to get to my mountaintops. My process started being on a mountaintop, like a really high, exciting mountaintop moment. And it was such a beautiful way to come to God. But then last year, if you guys have seen my TikToks, my health took a turn. I ended up, with a lot of chronic health conditions and chronic stomach conditions, a lot of mental health disorders, OCD, anxiety, and ED, and things of that nature. I really went through it last year, and I'm still trying to heal from it and get better. But the interviewer, when we were talking about it, he brought up the statement, like I said, a lot of your negative experiences happened after you came to Christ, which is not something that believers expect to happen. And I think that's really true because oftentimes we come to God and we're like, yes, now my life's going to be the best and everything's going to go perfect. But that's unfortunately not really true. Of course, I'm not saying everyone's going to have a health problem and everyone's going to have all these mental health issues and all of this is going to happen. But I am saying that life does happen and sometimes things hit and it doesn't feel good. And we go through these trials and struggles and the mountains and the valleys. And sometimes we kind of forget that like God is still in the valleys. Like we pray to him and we beg him and we ask him for help, but sometimes whenever he's not answering that prayer or helping in the way that we would like for him to answer or like for him to help, we kind of get this idea of like, okay, well, God doesn't love me and I want to turn away from him now. I don't really want to come to him because I came to this expecting my life to be free of worry and problems, and that's not what I got. In the Bible, in John 16:33, I got my Bible out to tell you this verse because it's the one that came to me while we were chatting, and it is this verse that says, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. You will have suffering in this world, but be courageous. I have conquered this world. In chapter 16, we learn about how, sorrow is turned to joy. Jesus is the victor, all of that fun stuff. And basically saying like things are going to happen, but Jesus is the ultimate victor in these situations. And I think that verse has a lot of power because we often think that life with God, like I said, is just beautiful, perfect, butterflies, rainbows, sunshine, like everything is great. And there is aspects of our lives with God that are great. And there's also aspects that will teach us things and that we go through trials, so we learn things. And we're going to experience things in life because that's going to happen. But what we need to remember is that God warned us that these things would happen. But not to stray, not to turn away from him, because in him is where the strength lies. And in him is where we find peace and joy and love and happiness. And I think we sometimes get confused on that because we think, well, if I'm supposed to have all this peace, love, joy, and happiness and everything needs to go exactly my way. And that's just not how God works. Sometimes we want him to do things the way we want it done because we think we know the best, and we simply just do not. I've had to learn that too many times with my life, but the one thing that I've always been able to cling to is that even though I experienced all of these trials and I went through all this stuff, Jesus still loves me and he's still there for me. And every single thing I went through brought me so much closer to him. And every single thing that I experienced, I've been able to help someone with. I've used these exact experiences in my ministry. These exact experiences led me to start getting my degree in ministry. It led me to get my PhD or try to get my PhD, which I'm thankfully in my dissertation year of. And I never thought that would happen. Like, everything that's happened in my life has led me straight to the feet of Jesus and to ministry and to pursuing, like, everything that he's called me to. And I think that without these trials and struggles, I couldn't be the person I am today. So this is my encouragement to you. The next time you're going through trials and struggles, trust. First of all, I understand where you're coming from, and I know they can be hard, and there's many tears and many rough nights, and you feel helpless and hopeless. But the one thing that I've always been able to cling to is the fact that I'm not helpless and hopeless because I have Jesus right beside of me, and I have his word right here that I can just cling to and go to him. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, to just have access to God straight through his word and just to sit with him and say, God, I'm upset because X, Y, and Z is happening. I need you to fill me with your peace to know that you have a plan in this and that everything's going to turn out the way you have called it to. Because the thing is, with life, God is not going to answer every single prayer the way that we think we want him to answer. He's going to answer it in the way that he knows that you need. And so if you've got to go through a couple trials and struggles, then you got to go through them, because what's on the other side is just so much more beautiful and so much better and greater than anything you could have ever imagined. Like, that's exactly what has happened with my life, with my struggles, with my trials. Everything I went through pointed me straight to him, and it pointed me to his mission and his plan for me and being in ministry and helping others. And so I just want to encourage you today that just because you're going through a trial and you're struggling, and maybe you came to God and it was all sunshine and rainbows and you had this big fire for him, and then something really bad happened, that doesn't mean that God abandoned you. That doesn't mean he's mad at you. That doesn't mean he's upset with you. That means you need to cling to him harder. That means you need to come to him because he's talking to you and he loves you and he wants to be with you.